As noted on the agenda, this is a working session. This is a discussion on Article 31 from the annual town meeting 2026, and as it relates to the referendum vote on June 16th. There has been a lot of discussion and information flying around town. The point of this item tonight is really twofold. It is for the board to reassert the facts as they were presented to town meeting and what the change to the bylaw is. And is not. It is also, and most particularly, to share what any individual member would expect to see or to require be included in a final policy, which again would have to be approved by this board. We have stated many times that the reason we don't have a complete policy now is that we have been soliciting feedback from the community for over a year. We were seeking town meetings agreement and approval that we could make this change before expending the time and money to draft a complete policy. And we do feel that there is more outreach that we hope and expect to see. The board has repeatedly indicated our individual commitment to specific requirements, and this discussion is really an opportunity to renew those. It is not an opportunity to advocate. We are not getting into votes or anything related to the actual June 16th vote. As a board, we have already issued a unanimous statement of support for the article as it was passed at town meeting. All of that is available on the town meeting page of the town website, and that speaks to our overall position and any advocacy work that we did on behalf of the vote at town meeting. I do want importantly to reiterate that the specifics of implementation are not drawn yet. That is ongoing through research, outreach, goodness, was a Freudian slip, outreach in the community to ensure that we draft a plan that meets the community's needs. The process was conceived to proceed following approval in order to implement a plan, and that is why it's not complete. And I know I'm saying that over and over, but it seems like things get said and they don't always get heard clearly, so I really want us to be as clear as possible. As individuals, we have made personal statements at this table and in other settings around town, but tonight is a chance to clarify what individual board members would expect they would want to see or to require, presuming that the town does move forward with the implementation of a new trash policy. So I will kick us off, and then I am going to ask other members to share their thoughts. And I will start by saying, I did a little bit of digging around with some of our immediate neighbors, among those who do provide curbside pickup as a town service, because remember, not all towns do that. And just looking at our closest neighbors who provide this, Bedford, Belmont, Arlington, all of them do provide for additional bags, which can be purchased for use in individual, like overflow weeks, let's call it. Bags are made available generally in multiple locations in any given town. Depending on the town, it was the DBW, Ace Hardware, Stop and Shop, Walgreens, CVS. The cost seemed relatively consistently to be about $3 a piece. They come in rolls of varying sizes depending on the town. And there also seems to be a provision pretty typically for an opportunity to obtain a second cart for an annual fee, which also comes out to about $3 to $3.50 a week. So if you know you're going to need it every week, it's easier to do the cart than the individual bags. That is an option. There also uniformly seem to be provisions for smaller cart sizes for anyone who would request that for whatever reason. My personal expectations would be that whatever policy we approve would include similar provisions. I would want comparably priced overflow bags to be available in convenient sources, multiple options, reasonable fee for a second cart. And given that there is obviously a mechanism to pick up bags, since we would have them available as a one-off option, then there should be an accommodation for people for whom the cart itself is a hardship. And that, again, we're not looking to draft the policy this evening. We're looking to put out things that we would be looking for. In my mind, it might even be something where if you could not manage a cart, you were entitled to a certain number of the bags provided on an annual basis that was an equivalent value. Again, These are the kind of thoughts we're looking to get from the community as we continue this conversation. So all of this I would expect to be delineated during community impact discussions. And all of these inquiries are to continue. The deeper engagement with the community, in my mind, will yield recommendations from across the community, which would specifically include the Council on Aging, the Commission on Disability. And I would expect that all voices and concerns would be valued, would be evaluated, would be weighed before any plan is drawn. So that's sort of where I'm thinking. And Mr. Pato, you look ready to go, so I'll let you go next.
Thank you, Ms. Hay. So I too have spent a lot of time thinking about this over the years. So first I want to start by noting why we brought Article 31 to town meeting. And we know that waste collection contract, our waste collection contract, will be up for renewal, as is our disposal contract at North Andover Waste to Energy, the incinerator facility. Based on observations of other community contracts, we expect these costs to rise sharply. I have no doubt that we will have to make changes to our trash program. The best way to rein in these cost increases is to reduce the total amount of waste we produce. This is something that can be done by each of us as individuals, but it's hard to see when the costs are buried in the total town budget. To some extent, this is an example of the tragedy of the commons. Unless the burden is noticed by each of us, there is little incentive to reduce. Hence the possibility of fees for excess trash. There are broad outlines for the trash plan, that what it will look like and what will be developed with considerable public input and in conjunction with our advisory committees, as Ms. Hay has already identified, for looking at specific needs of members of our community. But it's also going to be based on what we can negotiate with our haulers. For the trash plan, here's what I'm looking for. First, that the plan itself is a path to reduction of total waste. Second, that the plan complies with the law, requiring that fees can at most cover the cost of delivering the service. Based on fee structures from other towns, I estimate that the fees for excess trash would be in the range of $100 to $200 annually for a second bin, or $2 to $5 per bag for occasional excess trash. These are at my estimates. They're not yet completely known. That the fees are intended to create an incentive to reduce trash volume. But while we know that, to accomplish it, I would recognize that several factors exist. First, that some households are limited in what they can reduce. For example, there are those facing medical conditions requiring consumables that create more trash volume, and other inability by the individual to reduce. And I will require that accommodations that defray fees for these households and for the process for obtaining those accommodations preserve individual dignity. Second, that some households are financially limited. Today, we provide discounts or waive fees for these households already in a variety of programs for like express pass costs, for recreation program fee waivers, et cetera. I will require accommodations for these households as well. Baseline volume is important. The Waste Reduction Task Force conducted 2 studies. The first examined the 1,000 to 1,500 household trash practices by surveying the actual trash on the street over a number of days over the past year. They looked at the number of barrels, the fill level, the size, the use of curbside composting, the use of recycling. The second was a set of questionnaires asking residents how they might respond to size limits, which is an ongoing outreach to the community, so that we can get a sense of where is the majority of the community looking for what size will work for them. What we've heard so far is that most of the community can deal with 48-gallon or 35-gallon bins as a baseline. I will be looking for more data and more community feedback on the size as we move forward to set a baseline threshold where most residents are not impacted. My goal is to reduce total waste by incentivizing trash reduction for households who can do so, but not to create unrealistic hardship for residents. Fifth, Some residents have expressed concerns about barrel bin cart sizes. And I'll request a plan that allows for multiple cart sizes, just as exists in many of the towns around us that use carts. Some households want smaller carts because storage space and or lack of need for a large cart, or because they believe a larger cart would be difficult for them to manage physically. Others want the larger cart rather than a second cart to avoid managing multiple carts. I should note that the use of carts very clearly is independent of Article 31. Our choice to move forward with automated collection using carts is going to be driven by the contract we can negotiate with the haulers and what the costs are versus manual collection. From everything I've seen in neighboring communities, the history of contracts suggests that we are going to need to go to automatic collection. But again, this is independent of Article 31. While I only speak for myself, I know that this board has expressed many of these same concerns over the past 18 months or more, as we have heard reports from the Waste Reduction Task Force and prepared to take Article 31 to town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will just say that, again, our goal here tonight is really to make clear where our positions are and what our expectations are about a forward-looking plan. Mr. Lucente, you want to go? You want to wait?
The others.
All right.
Okay. I think a lot of the, when something is, this is a bylaw change, right? So we don't have the specifics, which is a concern. And for a number of our residents and for some not as much, change can be difficult, right? Especially when it is something that's part of our daily life, right? So, and I think we've, and Mr. Patter, you've talked eloquently about the drivers for why we consider this, why we are where we are, right? So I won't go into that. But when I look into at a program like this that needs to be drafted, there are a few principal points that are important, and you touched upon many of them, and Ms. Hay, you did as well. And it's because those principles will eventually drive the framework of what is put back in front of us to consider. And the principles will also define what the process is going to be. And you touched upon that, Ms. Hay, and you did as well, about stakeholder engagement. Especially the most vulnerable, people who get impacted, people who we don't see as the mainstream, right? So for me, when I break it down, it comes to equity from all aspects of the program. Everybody who uses our curbside program should feel like this is something they can do. It's easy, they can ease into it. So I feel like I would like to see a program that helps our community ease into this change, right? And the second point is fairness. And if we are looking at it from the equity perspective, fairness, especially from the price perspective, will automatically fall in place, because if everybody has been considered and accommodated for, a very small percentage of people should really be paying anything excess and until they get to a point where they don't have to, right? And the ease of use and accessibility is critical for everybody once the program is in place. And I would think when it comes to the bin sizes, I feel like just for the sake of easing our community into this change, that I would actually be supportive of a bin size that is the universal bin size is larger, and let people opt into a smaller size and say, well, I don't need a big bin size. And so most of the people who are able to accommodate and work with a smaller bin size will opt for it, and everybody else will work towards getting to that smaller bin size. So I think that's very critical in my head about the program, is make it phased so that everybody can ease into it. And not everybody feels like there's a massive change that they have to go through immediately, right? And you've touched upon all the stakeholder engagement and everything, so I won't touch upon that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sandin.
Okay, well, thank you. Article 31 has provided the town with much needed tools to decrease the amount of trash disposed and lower the impact on the town's budget, because those costs have been climbing much faster than Proposition 2.5 allows for many years now, and that's putting pressure on a budget that has to be balanced by law. So the reality is that without Article 31, the town would need to take one of the in my opinion, would need to take one of the following courses of action. We would need to do something to reduce the amount of trash and hence the amount of trash fees. But if we chose not to do that, the next option would be to maintain our current level of trash service as we have right now, but that would require us to cut services in other areas like library, community center, police, or fire staff. A third option, if we were not comfortable with either of those first two options, would be to maintain the current level of trash service and the current level of municipal service, but we would be enforced because of balanced budget requirements to impose an operating override that would increase taxes for everyone. None of those options are desirable to me personally. So to the question at hand, what are the options that we'd like to see if Article 31 is implemented? So we've heard from Lexington residents that program flexibility is critically important, and it certainly is for me. Many, many residents are informing us that they do not want to be burdened with oversized bins. And the townwide survey results show that 4 times as many households produce 48 gallons of trash per week than those households who produce more than 48 gallons of trash per week. For that reason, my personal opinion would be like Ms. Kumar's, that the town would select 48 gallons as the default size, but allow the 2/3 of the residents who produce less than 32 gallons of trash a week to opt out for a smaller and more manageable size bin. I'd also recommend that any resident be allowed an option to select a 32-gallon recycling bin as well, regardless of the default size that the select board eventually picks for recycling bins. And finally, we've heard now for many years on the select board, many residents who have told us that they are unable to even manage the 32-gallon bin size. And one thing that I might want to consider is that for those people, I've talked to one recently who said she only puts out 2 or 3 pounds in a small little bag every other week. And she was requesting that she be able to continue just to put out 1 bag every week or every other week. And it would seem to me that for those who have some accommodation issues, that they would be able, that are not able to handle 32-gallon bins, that they be able to put trash out in trash bags. So continuing on the accommodation front, I agree with Mr. Pato and Ms. Kumar that equity is critically important here, and I would recommend that there be no fees for additional bins for residents with medical disability issues and those residents who are needing financial assistance. Ms. Hay mentioned implementation issues. And I've discussed this previously, but maybe it's now maybe 6 or 8 or 9 months ago, hard to remember right now. But one of the most important issues for me is to make the town's new system extraordinarily easy for our residents to use and also low cost for the town. So I'll give you a little bit of an analogy. Most of us have experienced the benefits and ease of use of switching to an Easy Pass type of system for collecting tolls. And you may have heard that Easy Pass is switching from transponders to RFID stickers or just plain stickers to save money. These stickers get put on the car. They cost Easy Pass about 50 cents versus $10 to $20 for a transponder. You may ask why I'm bringing this up in the context of trash. Well, the good news is that this ease of use and low-cost solution is now being rolled out in trash haulers all across Massachusetts, and a large number of local communities have adopted this type of technology for ease of use, for low cost, and for smart administration benefits. A few of those communities are Bedford, Framingham, Malden, Reading, Beverly, Andover, Maynard, and Wenham have all switched to this type of smart trash tag technology. And there's a wide range of haulers who support this, including Republic, Casella, and E.L. Harvey. So one of the advantages of this type of system is that it would allow residents to continue using automated pickup compatible bins that they already own, and that would also allow for easier administration and lower costs for the town. So those are the things that I personally would like to see. I think we should be not picking one size for everybody. We should have some flexibility for people to opt to smaller bins, and for those who are unable to manage even these largest, the smallest of the bins that are available, that they be allowed to put out a trash bag if they're unable to handle the larger bins. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sandy. Mr. Lucente.
Thank you, Ms. Hay. So I think it's important that we realize, I think Mr. Pato alluded to it as well as others, but whether this referendum passes or doesn't pass, we have to have some conversations about bins and bin sizes. And I think that's very important. I think to get at and hopefully the community is aware and understands that that's the direction we are going in. What I think we need to focus more of our energy on as it relates to this referendum is what triggers a fee. When does the fee get triggered? Now, some of these are very intermixed, but I think it's important that people realize that we have to have these conversations and we have to have them soon. And my preference is that we go with a model that has options for folks so that not everybody's getting the same bin. I think we've all maybe alluded to that. The different size bins debate based on people's preference, I think would be welcomed by members of the community. I again, personally, I think my own personal background, I worry a little bit about what we haven't talked about is larger households. I come from a family, as many of you know, 9 children. So 2 parents, 9 children, and a dog. I don't know how you fit all of that every week into a single barrel. So I feel like it's punitive, if we just say that's it. I would like us to investigate and look into, are there certain household limits, number of people in a household where they would get an automatic second barrel to accommodate. We've already talked about folks with disabilities. I think we really need to double down on what that would look like. The devil is in the details with this. We have to figure out, how does someone get on a list to get that extra? And that would go for large households as well. The other thing I'm hearing from the community is concern about what is a household. How do we define a household? I think our policy needs to be clear about if we're trying to get more accessory dwelling units. Do those get their own barrel? Do 2 families get their own barrel? I think we just need to be clear about that so that there's no fear in the community. We also, Mr. Sandine alluded to the already existing barrels that may be out there. I do think we need to figure out a policy around how people would use the barrel. When's that acceptable? When's that not acceptable? I would like to see us in a position if this passes, or if the referendum stays in place, is a yes. I'd like to see us look at how to modernize and make easy the purchase of extra trash. I'll give a personal situation. I have both daughters came home from college. No surprise, they brought more trash and activity with them. We had a little gathering, and I find myself on Sunday evening with a lot of extra trash because we had a gathering at my house, and I had, thought, gee, if I needed extra bags what do I do? I wouldn't actually have a choice to go out at 10 o'clock at night to go buy bags. So we need to figure out a way, how can people easily access it? Many people have phones and tablets, and we got to figure out a way to connect that so it's less of a burden on individuals that want to use extra barrels, or extra bags, perhaps. Ms. Kumar talked about training a little, communicating with folks. We really need to figure out how to bring this up early enough so that people have enough lead time. I think one of the areas that was difficult with the last time pay as you throw was attempted is it felt like a surprise to people, even though there was some time to ramp up to it. But I think there was some, lack of ease of use, lack of understanding that we would probably want to mitigate. And perhaps it's a grace period that we have, if this gets implemented. And the last thing I'll say is I'd like us to talk more about recycling than we have up to this point. We have not really talked about recycling. How much I know personally, I have double the recycling that I do trash. And so we haven't talked about how many barrels does someone get for recycling? And is it one? It's going to be a problem for me. And then I think for a lot of families who I look at my neighborhood too, a lot of people have 2 recycling bins and 1 trash bin. So what will happen, I think, is people will start throwing out their recyclables, which is not what we want to have happen. We don't want people to, if they're not filling up their barrel every week, say, well, I'm going to fill it up with the recycling because I don't have any room left. I mean, I think it's natural that people will do what's easiest at their disposal. So I think we need to have a conversation about that to make sure we're all on the same page about what recycling means and what volumes are available to people. That's all that's on my mind at this point.
Okay, well, and as we sort of started with, all of this is input towards what will be an eventual plan. And again, we're going to be looking for the same sort of input to come from across the community. But this was sort of intended to answer the question, which I've seen flying around a lot in cyberspace, of what does the select board really think about this? And what does the select board really intend to do? So the purpose of this conversation was to make clear essentially where as individuals we all are, because we don't have something in front of us to vote on, but what we would be looking for before we would vote any particular policy. So were there additional questions that people felt we needed to answer as you've been out in the community? I mean, I know I raised a couple weeks ago the fact that I ran into someone who was talking about the impact on small businesses, and I will reiterate, this has absolutely no impact on small businesses because this is residential pickup.
Can I just add,
Yeah.
because I think there is an important distinction here. It may not have a direct impact. It may have an indirect impact on small businesses. And I know this for a fact. When we had pay as you throw last time, folks got frustrated, and what they did was find the nearest dumpster and put the trash in that dumpster. So many small businesses were paying for it without being aware they were paying for it, or not allowing that. And that created a lot of tension. Again, as a commercial property owner, I'm very concerned. I have people now who drive through my parking lot on a Saturday afternoon, and they'll gladly put their trash in my bin. All the time it happens, and it's very frustrating. It's also very costly to put up fencing around dumpsters. It's also very costly to lock every dumpster door because the haulers don't like it, and it costs more for them to unlock it and clear it up. But it's I'm bringing this up because it's real, and people take advantage. Again, when you're pushed toward limits, they'll find other ways. So as much as we say we're limiting waste with the proposal, to some degree, it may just end up in different places than what we expected or wanted.
Fair. So that would certainly be something we would want to see addressed.
Yeah, and enforcement.
Yes, and enforcement. Yep.
Yeah, because it's illegal for people to put trash in someone else's
As it is
dumpster.
today, correct. Mr. Sandine, I see your hand.
So thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Lucente's comment about it's important. He was saying it's important to hear what the select board thinks about recycling. So I didn't say much about that because I thought we were clear on that, and the town website is clear. But my personal opinion is that there is, the statement on the town website is that there are no limits on the amount of recycling, and that there will be extra bins provided to people if they need extra bins for recycling. But that would be my personal position on this as well, is that there should be no limit in terms of the amount of recycling, and that we should be willing to provide residents with an extra bin if they are looking for one.
Thank you. And that is something that I saw when I was nosing around other communities as well. All right, I'm going to ask if there are new pieces of information, because we are about a half an hour behind right now. So, Mr. Pato, did you have?
Yes, just quickly, the recycling bins, what we're talking about are larger carts than the bins people are using today. So we provide covered and much more volume. But there was also some wishes we have expressed about what kind of technology might come with a particular system. Not to say all of those are speculation at this point. They may exist in some other towns. They may or may not exist in the hauler contracts that are made available to us that are at a price point that is usable for us. So good for us to discuss, but this is all something that we need to evolve as we get into that negotiation period with haulers.
Correct. But we certainly can give priority points for it in an RFP. Mr. Lucente.
I would like to extend the conversation, not tonight, but about recycling specifically, because I do think we haven't really, at this table, have not talked about bin sizes or volumes at all. So that's why I brought it up. I think we need to have that discussion here, not in different committee group meetings. It's what is our policy going to be? And I think it should be unlimited, but that matters a lot about what bins you're giving people. Many of us still have the blue or yellow, some older totes that, but if
one yellow in my house.
But if those are going away because they're not allowed anymore, we need to replace that with the correct volume of replacement, which may mean extra units. And
so these are all pieces, and this is exactly the point, that this is an evolving plan that we will be looking to address all of these points. We will be looking for this information and input from the community on this. And again, it's in all voices. I think right now we are hearing from a segment of the population that, the town meeting members certainly, who represent many of their neighborhoods, but we need to make sure that we're hearing as many voices as we can and that all are equally weighted. All right. So I think, again, our purpose this evening was really to give some reassurance of what we are thinking so that nobody has to guess, because I've heard a lot of guessing. And then that, I think, will take us through that item if we're ready. People feel like you've said your pieces on where we are. All right. Then I am going to move it for now. Fair enough. Yes, this is not right. This does not end here. This is one piece of the information. All right, I'm going to move us to our second item for individual consideration this evening,